Okay, Mr. Jarvis here. Welcome to the revision video for John Steinbeck's Of Mice and Men. I'm going to start this off with a question that I hear quite often from English students, which is, how do I revise for English? And hopefully from watching this, you'll have an idea of something you can do practically that's going to allow you to revise for this exam. Okay, so any question that you're likely to get for Of Mice and Men is going to be worded something like this. So how does Steinbeck use language to influence your view of something? Okay, and I've just put obviously keywords language and influence your view in capitals because they're the really important aspects of that question. And what I'm going to do is show you a revision technique, okay, that's going to allow you to practice these skills ready for the exam. Okay, right, step one is simply to open the novel on any random page. Okay, so to prove that it's completely random, my daughter Sophia is going to open up the novel on a random page for you.
Hello, everybody.
Hello. Sophia, can you do me a favour? Can you get the book? And can you open it up on any page? Thank you. Okay. Right, so here are the two pages that we're going to be working with. Okay, 74 and 75, and it really doesn't matter wherever it is in the novel, but those are the ones that we're going to work with. Okay. Right, step two is to read the page or pages that you're going to work with and decide on the focus. Okay, now in any question, whether it's the question where you are given an extract or the one where you select your own extract, the focus is going to be either a character, a setting, an event, a relationship, or a theme. So what you need to do is, as you read through the extract that you've got, you need to decide what would the focus be in the most likely scenario, or if there's a number of things it could focus on, you pick one of them for yourself. Okay. So the section that we've ended up with is from section 4, and it's just after the point when Crooks and Lenny have had a conversation, and Lenny's explained his dream to Crooks, and Crooks has dismissed it, said it's not possible. He's seen loads of guys in that same situation, and at this point they hear a noise, and we're going to pick up just from a horse whinnied. I guess somebody's out there, Crooks said. Maybe Slim. Slim comes in sometimes, 2-3 times a night. Slim's a real Skinner. He looks out for his team. He pulled himself painfully upright and moved towards the door. That you, Slim? He called. Candy's voice answered. Slim went in town. Say, you seen Lenny? You mean the big guy? Yeah. Seen him round any place? He's in here, Crooks said shortly. He went back to his bunk and lay down. Candy stood in the doorway, scratching his bald wrist and looking blindly into the lighted room. He made no attempt to enter. Tell you what, Lenny, I've been figuring out about them rabbits. Crooks said irritably, you can come in if you want. Candy seemed embarrassed. I don't know. Of course, if you want me to, come on in. If everybody's coming in, you might as well. It was difficult for Crooks to conceal his pleasure with anger. Candy came in, but he was still embarrassed. You got a nice cosy little place here, he said to Crooks. Must be nice to have a room all to yourself this way. Sure, said Crooks. And a manure pile under the window. Sure, it's swell. Lenny broke in. You said about them rabbits. Candy leaned against the wall beside the broken collar while he scratched the wrist stump. I've been here a long time, he said, and Crook's been here a long time. This is the first time I've ever been in his room. Okay, so apologies for the lack of any American accent there. Mrs. Moore does a good one, so if you want to hear a proper American accent, see Mrs. Moore. Okay, step 3. What you need to do is, based on the random page that you're working with, pick out 3 or 4 quotations with language features that influence your view of the particular focus that that page explores. All right, so I've decided, and there's a number of possible ways you could have done it, but I've decided that the focus is going to be the character of Crooks. Okay, there's a number of things that you could say about that. So what I've done, as per step 3, is I've picked out some quotations. Okay, so the ones I've picked out: he pulled himself painfully upright. Crooks said shortly. Crooks said irritably. And it was difficult for Crooks to conceal his pleasure with anger. Okay, so I'm just going to work with those ones, but just for the purpose of this video, I'm going to focus on one. When you're doing this, you'd work your way through all 4 of them. Okay, and I'm going to show you what you would do with one of these. Right, step 4 is to plan. All right, so we've got 4 quotations, but for the purpose of this, we're just going to focus on this one. It was difficult for Crooks to conceal his pleasure with anger. All right, so remember, as always with this, it's an English language exam. Okay, and of course we go back to the question, how does Steinbeck use language to influence your view of something, in this case Crooks? We're going to think, how have particular features of language made us feel a certain way about Crooks? Okay, so the ones that I've underlined as kind of keywords: difficult. Okay, you can pause this at any point if you want to try and work it out before I say it, but difficult is, in terms of language features, an adjective. Okay, we've got conceal, which is a verb. Make that look more like a V. Okay, and then we've got pleasure and anger, which are both what you call abstract nouns. Okay, trying to multitask here. Okay, so in this sense, we've got at least 4 language terms that we can use. What we've got to think about is not just the fact that they're there, but what is the actual impact of them. Okay, so we're thinking, how does this influence our view of Crooks? I think the first thing to think about is what he's actually trying to do and what the language tells us about that. So Crooks is feeling some sense of pleasure from what's going on. Okay, so he's got a bit of company in the room. You know, for the first time in a long time, there's 2 of the men in the room with him, conversing with him, treating him to some extent with respect. Okay, and so we have this mention of the abstract noun pleasure. Okay, but what he's trying to do is he's trying to hide that. And he's trying to hide it with the next abstract noun, which is anger. So what I would be tempted to do is to talk about the contrast between those 2 words. Okay. Conceal. Cover something up. Okay. Steinbeck has purposely chosen to talk about this using that particular verb. Okay, to cover up the pleasure that he's feeling. And the adjective beforehand, difficult, he's struggling to do this, which therefore implies that the pleasure is actually quite large. Okay. And he's really trying his best to cover it up. Okay, so there's a number of things happening with the language there that are influencing us to see that he's trying to do something in a certain way. Okay, why is he trying to cover it up with anger? Perhaps because he doesn't want to come across, you know, as happy in this situation. Maybe that would make him feel vulnerable. Maybe he feels uncomfortable feeling that way. That's for us to decide as readers. Okay, that's what Steinbeck was working on. That's what he was trying to do. So that's, in essence, what I would talk about if I was looking at that quotation. Okay, which is going to lead on to the next thing. So the next step is to take your idea and to develop it into a P paragraph. All right, one of the really important things in the mark scheme is to make sure that your points are clear and they're thorough. So what I've done is I've written a point. Okay, and what I can suggest to people is, if you want to stop the video after having read this point, you can then develop the rest of the paragraph yourselves. Then you can play it on afterwards to see what I say next and see how it compares. All right, so Steinbeck's use of abstract nouns, so you've got your language feature, influence us to see Crooks as a conflicted man who wants to cover up his true emotions. So conflicted meaning he's feeling two different ways at once. All right, so that's the point. I'm going to pause it there. Oh, you're going to pause it there. And I'd like you to think about where you would go next with this in terms of a PEA paragraph. All right, so what's going to come next? See if you can put the next bit in. After that, we'll look at what I do, and then we'll move on to the A. Okay, so the next bit I've added on, a contrast is created between the abstract nouns pleasure and anger when referring to Crooks's feelings at this point. So in terms of the PEA, this is the E, where we introduce our examples. Okay, again, you'll notice abstract nouns being mentioned. The two quotations are embedded into the sentence. So I'm not just saying an example of this is, and then putting the quote in. I'm actually trying to build it into a sentence, into a statement. And I've displayed this to the examiner. I've said, this is what's happening. A contrast is being created. And I've got my two examples in there. Okay, have a think about what you do next. Pause the video at this point. When you've had a go at it, then come back and have a look at what I've done. All right, so here's the analysis section that follows on. We are aware that Crooks wants to cover up his true feelings via the use of the verb conceal, which has also been used to refer to Crooks's feelings. Probably worded that a bit badly, but you get the idea. This influences us to believe that Crooks is trying hard to cover up his true positive emotions at finally having some company. He's used to isolation. He possibly feels that if he shows his true feelings, this would make him vulnerable to the others. However, the addition of the adjective difficult implies that the positive feelings are very strong. All right, so there you've got your full P paragraph with lots of detailed language analysis. And I've just underlined a few things. So obviously abstract nouns is a language term. Influence us refers to us as readers. The idea that it's a conflicted man trying to cover up his emotions is the main point. Then we've got other language features, contrast, abstract nouns. We've got quotations, pleasure, anger. We've got that later on. I forgot to underline that one. Influences us, again, reader reaction, and all the way through to the end. Right, so going back to our original quotations that we picked out, there are some others. I'm not going to do all of those. You can do that yourselves. But the idea is that is something you can sit down and do with any random page. And that is the most effective way to revise. Okay, sitting and flicking through your book, your exercise book, and rereading things that you've written down, that's not useful. Actually sitting down and doing something like this will be useful, and it will help you with part A and part B of the question. Okay, hopefully you found that useful. There'll be more of these videos appearing throughout the rest of the year, so please use them, and good luck.
Don't forget to advise.